Senator, welcome back to the program here. Your former colleague, Congresswoman Kay Granger, has announced that she will not seek re-election. Both of you are trailblazers for Texas women in politics. What do you think her legacy is?
Oh, she has a great legacy, Jason. I was very disappointed that she decided to leave, but I do understand her life has been so dedicated for public service, and it's very tough right now. And her job is huge as chairman of the Appropriations Committee. It's just a great responsibility, and you have to work 24/7 to try to get everybody's views to put into a place where you can then negotiate with the Senate. So I think she decided to just put all in for that responsibility and not have to also then campaign for reelection at the same time. And I respect and admire her, and we will all want to wish her well as she leaves a great, great life of public service.
In political circles, Senator, you two were known as the two Ks out and about in Texas. Have you spoken to her since her announcement?
Well, I've emailed with her. I haven't spoken to her, but I did email with her several times in the last few weeks. And I knew that she was going through a very hard time when they were trying to select a speaker. And so we are in contact a lot. And if I go to Washington, I always see her. So I haven't talked to her since she made this decision, but I know what she has been thinking.
She was one of the three Republicans from Texas that voted against Jim Jordan for Speaker. It sounds like this was all weighing on her, huh?
Yes, she wanted to make sure that there was a speaker that was going to help move the appropriations bills, which is her first responsibility. And she knew that she had to have someone that would understand that there are Democrats who have a say in this and that you've got the Senate to deal with. And I think she was being very thoughtful about what kind of speaker we should have. And I don't know Mr. Johnson, so I can't speak about him, but I think that she was very much instrumental in guiding the conference in this direction.
She was, of course, the first female mayor of the city of Fort Worth, the first woman to be the chair of the Appropriations Committee in Congress. How do you think history is going to look back at her political career?
Oh, I think that she is going to look very good in history because she has been a lot of firsts. Certainly, she was a wonderful mayor of Fort Worth, and Fort Worth is one of our most dynamic cities, and she helped build it when she was mayor, then went to Congress and continued to do so much for Tarrant County and the area around Tarrant County. And then we worked together constantly because when I had something for something in Texas that wasn't in her district, I could go to her and work things with her, and she would help any place in Texas that needed something. And we had kind of a bond of Texas Congress people working with our senators to make sure that all of Texas is represented by both the House and the Senate and working together for the interests of our state.
You had a reputation for bipartisanship, though, in D.C. How did you become close with Kay Granger?
Oh, I got to know her early when she was mayor and I was in the Senate. And she talked to me about whether she should run for Congress. And I said, absolutely, you should run for Congress. I wanted to have a leader like she is as a colleague. And so I encouraged her at that time. And of course, then we became colleagues and we're working together for her district, but also for all of Texas. And I think in her position now as Appropriations Committee Chairman, she's working for America, and I'm very proud of her.
Senator, as the former U.S. ambassador to NATO, I know you have your eyes on what's happening around the world. I want to ask you about Ukraine and Israel. Let's start with Israel first, since that's all in the headlines. What are you watching to happen next in this crisis?
Well, of course, what happened to Israel, that horrendous attack, just unprovoked and out of the blue from Hamas, a terrorist organization, we all, of course, wanted to help Israel in every way that we could for this surprise attack and the hostages that Hamas was holding, who are Americans, as well as the innocent Israeli people. So, of course, I think we need to be there for Israel, but there is a bigger picture here, and that is Iran is fomenting this um, terrorism. They support Hamas, they support Hezbollah, Yemen. They are a constant force for turmoil in the area. And what I think is going to finally isolate Iran with its terrorist subjects is for Saudi Arabia and Israel to continue the talks that they were making for a regularization of Israel and Saudi. And already under the Abraham Accords, they had achieved regularization with some of the other Arab countries. Adding Saudi to that and having as part of a deal which was being discussed as a two-state solution to give the Palestinian people a real homeland and to make sure that the Arab nations around there support the government. The Palestinian people have had corrupt and incompetent government, and that has caused this turmoil to continue. And now I think if the Arabs will surround working with Israel to try to get a Palestinian state where they have a homeland with a government that can work with the other Arab states to build a homeland for the Palestinian people. That's the ultimate answer.
And Saudi Arabia is the country that is most likely to play a role in that?
Saudi Arabia is the key. Qatar and UAE have already worked toward a normalization with Israel. And I think Saudi coming in with its position in the Middle East, which is the strongest country, with the Iranian influence that is so detrimental to the rest of the Middle East and to Israel, I think Saudi can play a key role if they will step up and be supportive of the two-state solution, working with Israel, and then making sure that the other Arab countries that want to have a normalization and a regularization, which is most of them, uh, to put that coalition together to support a new government in the Palestinian territory that would become their home state, I think is the role that Saudi could play.
There are a number of people in Congress on the Republican side who want to reduce funding for Ukraine. What do you think about that?
That is a huge mistake, and it's not looking at the big picture. Remember that Putin has said he wants to recreate the Soviet Union, and he thinks he can do it if the West, if NATO and the US just sort of say, well, never mind, it's not our problem, which is what happened when Putin invaded two provinces of Georgia. And that increased when he took over by force Crimea, which is part of Ukraine. And I think he thought he could move into Kiev and very quickly take over all of Ukraine. And if he is successful, he will think that he can now do it in a NATO state like Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania, which are right practically on their border across the sea. Then the US is in the war, NATO is in the war. And right now, if we support Ukraine and make sure they win, we don't have American troops on the ground or in harm's way. We are giving them the tools they need to win. If we have NATO and the US called together under the Article 5 because because Putin tries to take over a NATO state, then it will be American troops on the ground in harm's way. And I think the people who are saying we shouldn't continue to support Ukraine are not seeing for the future that this is in our best interest. It's our security interest that we help Ukraine win and keep Russia at bay from trying to overtake other countries that used to be part of the Soviet Union and are now free people with democracies.
A lot happening internationally, but there's a lot happening domestically at home here as well too. Super Tuesday, 4 months away. I know you know Super Tuesday very well when Texas and a number of other Republican states vote in the presidential election. Do you plan to support anybody for president?
Yes, I hope I can support a Republican. I think that we have good candidates. I think it's time to have new candidates. I don't think Trump or Biden should be the nominees for President of the United States. I hope we have new choices, and I don't know yet where I will be, but there are a number of good candidates that are in the wings that I hope to be able to support one of those, and looking forward to having that kind of a contest.
I asked you a moment ago about Kay Granger's legacy, and you're so well known in Texas, from prom queen to television reporter to attorney to state representative, U.S. senator, NATO ambassador. What do you want your legacy to be, Senator?
I'm not thinking about my legacy, but certainly public service. I love my country and I love representing Texas in the Senate. I loved representing the United States at NATO. And I have really been fortunate and blessed to have the opportunities that I have had to be a part of making sure that we are doing the right things when I could. I wasn't always successful in what I thought was the right thing, but I've certainly worked hard for my country and my state, and I feel very lucky that I've had those opportunities.
Anything else you're keeping an eye on right now around the world between, separate from Ukraine and Israel?
Yes, I think that we should be gearing up for any adversary that doesn't want our way of life, our democracy, our freedom, our human rights. And I think that we are looking at what China is doing around the world. They've been very aggressive in the Belt and Road Initiative and trying to put Huawei in all of our government communication systems, the unfair trade practices that they have done. And you see how they've used that leverage with Australia when Australia didn't do what they wanted, and in the Huawei communication system that they wanted to put in Australia, and Australia said no. So they started a trade war. These are the kinds of economic leverage that are being used. And so I think we have to be very watchful of that. And I think we need to be much stronger in preparing now for other conflicts. I think we need to be energy independent because that's a security issue. We can help our European allies with Russian aggression, but we need to be energy independent so we don't count on anyone but ourselves. And we are not energy independent right now, but we could be if we decide that we are going to encourage energy production rather than discouraging it. So that's number one. And number two is we need to rearm ourselves. We've given a lot to Ukraine, we're giving a lot to Israel. We need to rearm ourselves so that any potential adversary will know that we are not weak, that we're energy independent, and we have all the arms that we need for 2 or 3 major conflicts around the world. So preparation and deterrence is what I would be looking at right now for the United States and for us to be trying to produce, to be ready for any eventuality. Because you look at the world right now, and a lot of things are blowing up, and a lot of things could be blowing up even more. So we need to be prepared for our security, and that is making sure Ukraine wins, making sure that there is some kind of settlement that is a regularization for Israel and the Middle East that isolates Iran. And then I think rearming ourselves so that we can address any eventuality that might occur. And we have the strength to do that. We can do it.
Let me ask about part of that. How concerned are you about China and what's happening in that country?
I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned because they're very methodical and they are the kind of people who plan ahead, they strategize. And I think you've seen how they have built up and begun to use their economic leverage to make people in other countries do what they want. You see it in the way they have handled Australia, creating a trade war with Australia, even though it was a major trading partner with them. I think you've seen it even in Italy, where they put a European Belt and Road Initiative, which means they've taken big parts of many of the ports in Europe, most of the ports actually, and even in the United States and South America. The Chinese control both ends of the Panama Canal. So that's missile range with our country. And so these kinds of things we must be watchful for. What do we want to do with China? We want to deter them. We want to bring them into rules-based order in the country. We do not fear competition that is fair and level. But what we do not and should not accept is that China would steal our intellectual property and would make all of these forays into our countries, and they're very much in South America, as well as, of course, all over Europe and then Asia. We just need to be watchful and careful and smart about deterring any kind of a conflict that would put us in a war with China. But we must be prepared with the strength and the power in order to assure that they wouldn't think that they could get by with continuing this behavior that is very aggressive and very unfair in competition.
Yeah, indeed so. Senator, we always appreciate the time and your insight. We miss you in politics, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jason.